You know, sometimes our last reveal at the Game Awards is a teaser for something years and years away. But not tonight. Our final world premiere comes from 61 members of the team that built Apex Legends and Titanfall. 4 years ago, the principals founded a new independent studio with the hopes of pushing the shooter genre forward with a new original game. They've done it in complete secrecy, which is even more amazing because the game is very deep into development. The power of independent, self-published studios to push this medium forward is a growing and, I think, positive theme in our industry. And so tonight,
potential for a Titanfall spiritual successor,
game, but also your first look at the gameplay. I've played it, and after you see this trailer, I think you're going to want to as well. Welcome to Highguard.
Into lands uncharted.
No, this doesn't even look like a shooter.
I venture without fear. And ride without rest.
Oh, well, I mean, it is a shooter.
I fight to the end.
Bringing the heat.
I don't know. This looks a little off.
Your light belongs to me.
Moving in for the attack.
Shield breaker forming.
I don't know, I'm getting very strong Concord vibes from this.
Strike fast. Siege tower coming in.
The enemy is on gate. I'm coming for you!
Marking baddies from above.
It's my turn. I am the coming storm.
I feel like you missed every shot there.
I am a warden, and this is my oath.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. That genuinely gave me like strong Concord vibes. Last night was the Game Awards, and there was a stat that chat was regurgitating that I didn't believe. I thought it was so outlandish they must have escaped from a mental institution and were spewing a bunch of mumbo-jumbo until I checked and verified the authenticity. The claim was that last year's Game Awards had higher viewership than the Super Bowl. And I said, well, that's a bunch of fiddlesticks, no way. Super Bowl had like 120-something million viewers. It was like the most watched Super Bowl ever. No way the Game Awards beat that. Turns out it did. Jeff Keighley hung his hog on the Super Bowl numbers. 154 million global viewers. And now that I have this knowledge locked away in the old steel trap up here, it makes the Game Awards final reveal from last night even more odd, just peculiar. Because it is a blunder. That is the most important final reveal. And last night, boy howdy did that one fall flat, unfortunately. And I know a lot of people have criticized Jeff Keighley, like playfully teasing about how he'll overhype things that don't warrant that level of glaze or, anticipation. Where Jeff Keighley will sometimes, get you like biting your nails, like, holy shit, what's he about to reveal? Because he's hyping it up so much. Like, in my numerous decades in the industry, I've never been this excited. This is my honor, my privilege. This is the apotheosis of gaming. I present to you the world premiere for the Poop That Took a Pee 2, as he's starting to get like tears in his eyes for it. And it's like, well, I think you oversold this one a bit, to be honest with you. Though, one that people point to is from last year where he revealed Okami. I do not think that's a good example of that, because that is not overhyped. That genuinely is extremely exciting. I fucking love Okami and cannot wait for the new Okami. But he does have a history of doing that occasionally, and last night was one of those examples for the final reveal.
Our final world premiere comes from 61 members of the team that built Apex Legends and Titanfall. 4 years ago, the principals founded a new independent studio with the hopes of pushing the shooter genre forward with a new original game.
If that doesn't put a boner in your trousers, nothing will. You cannot have a more hype introduction than that right there. Those sentences alone could make the Grinch's heart grow 3 sizes. And when I was watching this live, I actually thought for a moment we might be seeing a Titanfall 3 or, at the very least, a spiritual successor to Titanfall. But that's where they get you. Jeff's got you eating out of the palm of his hands right now. You're hook, line, and sinker buying into this delusion. Like, I have said for a long time, we will probably not see a Titanfall 3. Unfortunately, I think EA is going to kegel on that property forever and never use it for anything ever again because they didn't perform financially well for them. Even though these games are beloved, I don't think we'll ever see a new entry into this franchise. But I really was starting to buy into the fantasy here because he's mentioning that a lot of people responsible for those masterpieces have broken off and are now pursuing something new together. And you're expecting like maybe it's in a similar vein to Titanfall. You know, Professor Utonium's in the lab and he's putting together all the ingredients of the perfect little shooter. But that wasn't what was on the menu. Instead, what was served up on the plate was a seemingly standard hero shooter. Now, I always have a great time watching the Game Awards. This year, I also had a lot of fun watching it. I just really don't understand why they would save this game as their final reveal, which is like always the most important reveal because it's the one that sticks with the viewers the longest. And it's usually reserved for the one that's going to fucking have them, you know, gushing grannies. And having a generic hero shooter be in that place feels really odd, and a lot of people have been kind of clowning on it for it. It's not the most exciting looking game. It's not going to put you on the edge of your seat there. And it does give me a similar vibe to Concord when that was revealed, unfortunately. And a lot of people have taken to calling this Concord 2. Even though the game's not out or anything yet, it does kind of have a lot of similar DNA to it from the look of the gameplay here. And it just feels like a game that shouldn't have been saved for last as like the big oorah. This should have just been a game that they show somewhere in the middle or towards the beginning where it's like, hey, this game's also right around the corner if you want another hero shooter. Like if you're really salivating for more hero shooter action, here comes Highguard. Like that makes sense. It just doesn't really compute why they would have this be the final reveal. I think what would have fit here best actually was the Star Wars KOTOR game. They have a new KOTOR coming out called Fate of the Old Republic, and that was extremely hype. I think if they had saved Fate of the Old Republic for the final reveal, that would have been a big pop-off moment. Because that is something that a ton of people, myself included, cannot wait for. And now I need to go back and replay KOTOR 1 and 2 because it is so cool. That is something people have really wanted. Whereas with Highguard, I feel like there's more people asking for the common cold than more hero shooters. And especially from such a talented team that have put together games like Titanfall, you would hope that they'd spread their wings a bit more than just like a hero shooter game. So it's just one of those things that is underwhelming for a final game reveal. But anyway, I'll stop yapping about it. That's really about it. See ya. Today's such a special day, I even dusted off the bucket hat for it. It's Highguard release day. I imagine you probably already called in sick for work in order to take as much time as possible to enjoy this game that everyone in the world had been salivating for since it was revealed at the very end of the Game Awards. Since then, it's been quite a question mark with Highguard because they got the prime spot in the Game Awards out of nowhere, a game no one was expecting, and a genre most people weren't exactly super excited for these days. Most people perceived it to be a hero shooter, myself included, because in the footage they showed it looked like it was some type of hero shooter. Most often compared to like Concord, it wasn't a great trailer, and the position that it was placed in at the Game Awards made things even worse. They also then went radio silent for over a month, up until like a day or two ago, where they finally broke the silence saying that the game is still coming out as advertised, and then finally started, speaking up about it. The game came out today, and it's very clear that this is not a Concord level failure or anything. It had an all-time peak of just under 100,000 players, which Concord couldn't have even imagined in their wildest dreams. That game didn't even get to like 1,000, and it died in 2 weeks. It barely lasted longer than a poop left in a gas station toilet. So this blew it out of the water in terms of player count. And I think a large part of that success is because the game is free to play, whereas Concord was a $40 paywall. So even people that weren't exactly hyped about Highguard, they were at least willing to give it a spin, at least give it a chance. Kind of. There were some people that literally logged into the game and said this is the biggest pile of dog shit ever, 0 out of 10, throw it in the trash bin. Without ever even like playing a match, or maybe they did the training and then just said, nope, this is terrible, I quit. I spit on this garbage. Which, whatever, I'm not your fucking dad. If that's how you want to interact with games, all power to you, man. Pretty much the second this puppy popped out of the oven here, people flocked to Steam to leave scathing reviews on it and post their, like, jokes and memes about how fucking trash it is without ever even loading into a single match. Right now it's sitting at mostly negative. And of course not all of that is from people just looking to dunk on it because of the whole Game Awards fiasco. There are plenty of things to dislike about it so far with my experience. For me, I always like to give things a fair shake, so I actually played it a little earlier today with Matt and Danny. I have a video up on MoistCr1TiKaL Gaming if you want to see how our first match went. And I want to give you like my early thoughts here. I'm going to stream more of it tonight. Real quick though, I want to interrupt to briefly mention something that I've been pretty hyped for. Starforge just partnered with Ducky and Jagex to deliver a very special RuneScape keyboard for the 25th anniversary. All of you know I'm a huge RuneScape enthusiast, a super fan, so I was just pretty pumped about this, so wanted to put it on your radar. If anyone out there also loves RuneScape and is looking for a new keyboard upgrade, pre-orders are available now at Starforge. So anyway, back to Highguard. Overall, the game is just, it's fine. Like, I don't think it's nearly as terrible as people are making it out to be. Like, this is one of the worst FPS games of all time or something. It's just not even close, really. It's just very generic. And not in terms of, like, the actual gameplay mechanics, because they actually do try something different. It's not a hero shooter. It's not a battle royale. It's a 3v3 raid skirmish. I don't even know what to really call it, where you have a prep phase where you reinforce things a la Rainbow Six Siege, except the reinforcements here are fucking worthless. Like, basically, you take paper walls and you put plastic on top of it. That's your reinforcement. You can still easily get through these reinforced walls. To me, it just feels like the prepping to defense is kind of useless. It doesn't really stop much, at least not so far in my experience. But you have this phase to prep like that. Then you have a resource gathering phase where you gear up, so you go out in the world and you do some fucking Fortnite mining for materials, which you can spend at the trader for weapons and armor. And you can also find loot out there for armor or, other weapons or even like ability cooldown type stuff. Then after that, then you have the sword part, the shield breaker, where you and the other team will then fight to get the shield breaker. Whoever gets the shield breaker takes it to the other team's base, and then the raid begins, and what you want to do is plant bombs to blow up their base. Rinse and repeat. It's kind of a mishmash of a bunch of different things put into this mode, and I don't dislike it, but it feels like some of it's entirely worthless. Like I mentioned, that prepping phase to like reinforce certain walls around the points. Like, in theory, that's a decent idea, like in Siege, but here, at least in my limited experience so far, the reinforcing just doesn't really do a whole lot. Like, again, it feels like you're just reinforcing a wall with like some fucking saran wrap. Like, it doesn't juice it that much. What you use to blow up walls when they're not reinforced, you will still use to blow them up when they are, with pretty much a very close level of success. So that feels like they could maybe do with an overhaul. The gearing phase also feels a little not super great, because as the rounds progress, like as the game goes forward, you can just buy what you want from the trader. So you mainly just collecting the crystals is the more important part than trying to like hunt for random loot. And it seems like you all end up getting geared to the same level anyway by the end. So those two things I don't think are amazing, but at least the horse makes this game feel faster than I thought it would be. I was under the impression this would be like Concord level molasses that you're playing through, where every character just moves at a fucking glacial pace. And then when I found out it's 3v3, I thought for sure this was going to be a snooze fest. But thanks to like having a mount, you're able to get around pretty quick, so you're able to go from fight to fight. And during the actual raiding, you do respawn pretty quick, reviving is pretty quick, so it does feel much faster than I thought it would. Movement is still pretty slow, like there's not a whole lot of like crazy movement tech that I've seen yet. I've tried like bunny hopping to a certain level and that kind of works, so maybe there's just more unexplored tech there, but base movement is pretty slow. And the big thing is the gunplay. This has been a contentious one because there's a lot of people that fucking hate it and some people that really like it. I think that it's solid. I actually thought the gunplay was pretty solid. I enjoyed it more than I expected to. It's not the tightest. It feels like aiming sometimes fights against you because it's somewhat floaty, but overall, the guns did feel good. Like, getting into a fight did feel enjoyable. Like, I don't think the gunplay is trash like a lot of people are saying. The big thing with gunplay, though, that holds it back is that there are certain things that this game is missing, which is why I'm saying that it feels kind of generic when it comes to its gameplay. Like, it has decent bones, but it's very bland. So because it's missing a lot of the flavor from some better shooters out there, this one just feels lackluster in comparison. But overall, I do think the shooting is just fine. Like, I have no issues with the gunplay. Some of the abilities are cool too, I suppose. I haven't seen all of them, but the ones I've toyed around with seem pretty solid. Really, at the end of our gaming session, the consensus Matt, Danny, and I drew was that was more enjoyable than we expected going into it, though it's probably a game none of us are going to get like super into. Like I said, I'm going to stream more tonight, so we'll see if maybe I end up falling in love with it somehow, some way. But for what I've experienced thus far, it's fine. Like, it's just a fine game. There's nothing like particularly special about it, but it's definitely not like a really bad game that people are saying that it is. I really think Geoff Keighley fucked him. Like, actually went in there and face fucked him by putting Highguard at the very end of the Game Awards, where apparently, based on a lot of like articles and stuff that have come out and talked about it, they didn't even want to be there. Like, they didn't want that slot or anything. Geoff Keighley just felt so strongly about it that he made the decision to put him there. I don't know if all of that's confirmed or not, but regardless, what is true is that their place at the end of the Game Awards, the most important slot in the most watched event for gaming, went to Highguard, which puts a huge level of expectations on this product, and it puts so many eyes on it. So people were expecting something like really impressive, and this game isn't. Like, it's fine. Like I said, like, there is some fun to be had there, but it's not like a game I can really see people like dedicating their lives to as like, this is my comfort shooter now. I do think that there, like I said, are decent bones here, so if they do decide to build upon it, flesh it out, add more to it, improve certain things, and start to really, spruce it up a bit, maybe it could get to that point, but as it stands right now, not really in that state. And by being in that position at the Game Awards, it really did hamper them. It was a huge detriment, because if this game was just shadow dropped or something, like if this game just like randomly came out today, like, hey, from some of the creators of some of your favorite shooters like Titanfall, we have this new studio and we've been working on this game and we want to share it with all of you today. Come give it a try and let us know what you think as the game evolves. I think people will be a lot more receptive to it and a lot more enthusiastic about like maybe seeing this game improve down the line. But because it had so much hype at the Game Awards, people went in expecting something that this is just not really delivering on at the moment. Anyway, though, I just wanted to give you my thoughts on the game so far from the little bits that I've played, and I'm very curious to see how Highguard shakes out down the line. They already put like a 1-year roadmap out there, so it seems like they're pretty committed to it. I guess we'll see. Anyway, that's really about it. So, yeah, the game's mid. It's just a very average game. I don't see anyone like getting hooked on it. It's just a very game. I imagine people play it here and there with friends, but I don't think it's going to be like some kind of staple game. But maybe they put a lot of tender loving care into it over the next year with the roadmap they put out, and it gets very good. I guess we'll see. Jinkies. So, Highguard. Huh? What's the deal with salt shakers, am I right? It's, well, it's not good news on the front of Highguard. There has been an announcement, and maybe an announcement's not the right word to use, it's not really accurate to say that. There have been some LinkedIn posts from former Wildlight employees, Wildlight is the studio behind Highguard, mentioning that most of the staff has been laid off at the studio following the release of Highguard, which only came out about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks appears to be like the curse, because Concord had something very similar where it only had a lifespan just barely longer than a mosquito, where it had completely shut its doors in about 2 weeks. It barely even was able to open its eyes after its birth. It seems like 14 days is the magic number that big budget games are given to either blow up or blow out your ass. It's like in The Ring, you know, where you get that phone call saying you're going to die in 7 days, but in the video games industry, you get 14 days. You're going to die in 14 days, it seems. Now, in Highguard's case, they actually had put out a whole year-long roadmap, which made a lot of people believe more heavily in them committing to the long term of growing this, expanding it, and trying to make it flourish and find a player base. And make no mistake, this game did have a successful launch. The day this puppy came out, 100,000 curious sports fans hopped in there to check it out, but as of right now, there's just over 2,400 playing, which isn't really like the smallest potatoes ever. 2,400 concurrent players with nearly a 4K 24-hour peak is pretty decent for a lot of games, but given the scope of this project and the size of the team, it looks like they're closing the doors on a lot of the employees here. I don't know if that means they're looking to shut it all down or if they're looking to just downsize because they can't justify the spend any longer. I'm not entirely sure. That remains to be seen, but it's certainly not looking good for the future of Highguard, which unfortunately I don't think a ton of people were surprised by. A lot of people kind of predicted that this might happen. I don't think anyone read this shocked. Like, I don't think there was anyone like eyes wide open, you know, jaw on the floor, stunned by this news, because releasing a game like Highguard in the current saturation of this market, it's kind of a death sentence. Like, those guards must be high to be expecting this to be like a massive success that blows everything else out there and finds its own footing off rip. That was always going to be an uphill battle. It's very difficult to get gamers to switch from their comfort game to your game in the same genre. They might go check it out, but most likely they're going to go back to the game that they've spent the most time with, the one they're most accustomed to. The most notable example that completely bucks that trend is Marvel Rivals, where it entered into an extremely saturated genre, fucking hero shooters. That should have been dead on arrival, death sentence, bury that shit in the dirt. But thanks to the power of the Marvel IP, where so many people are so passionate about Marvel itself, and also the developers diverting tons and tons and tons of resources to just churn things out really quickly, very high quality, very quickly, and also the timing they entered the market where Overwatch was starting to flounder and people were hungry for something to replace it, Marvel Rivals just had all the stars align, and now it is successful, and it did carve out its niche. Highguard didn't have those luxuries. People were even confused on what Highguard was in the first place. They announced at the Game Awards and then went fucking radio silent crickets for a whole month. People thought it was a hero shooter. I thought it was a hero shooter. A lot of people thought it was fucking Concord 2.0. There were so little things to know about it, so it was hard for people to get hype and buy into this idea of Highguard in the first place when they weren't even talking about it. So when the game came out, and in my opinion was okay, like I don't think it's a great game, I don't think it was a bad game, it was just kind of an alright mid-game, so it was always going to struggle retaining a player base. People tried it, they were lukewarm on it, some people hated it, some people did like it, but it was always going to be tough to get them to stick with it long term, especially if the developers don't seem willing to. Like, these layoffs don't inspire confidence, so there's 2,400 people playing it right now, and I imagine they really like it to still be playing it. And they did add things to it, like the 5v5 mode, so it seems like there is a willingness to try and, like, flesh it out. But with these layoffs, it seems like the future's uncertain. And who knows, maybe down the line they could have carved out a unique identity for it. It did have some unique ideas, like with the base rating. So, maybe there's a what if there. And again, they haven't announced that they're shutting down or anything. They haven't fully turned the lights off over there. So perhaps it's still in the cards. But I just don't understand why it feels like no one at these companies internally is putting their thinking caps on. It doesn't feel like they're being realistic. Because this was a very likely outcome that most people were kind of expecting to unfold here. So why are they already laying off people after only 2 weeks? Why wouldn't you go into a project like this with a longer runway? Like, look, we might be bleeding players for a couple months, and that's okay. Like, we have allocated budget to account for that as we look to try and find our community and build this game with the players. Like, they're already doing mass layoffs after just 2 weeks. So it seems like they were expecting this to just fucking explode and be the next Marvel Rivals or the next Call of Duty or something. Like, who really knows what the expectations are anymore at these companies? It just surprises me how quickly games will come and die. Anyway, though, taking a look at the LinkedIn here, this comes from someone named Alex Grainer. Unfortunately, along with most of the team at Wildlight, I was laid off today. This one really stings as there was a lot of unreleased content I was really looking forward to that I and others designed for Highguard. However, I'm excited for my next adventure. If your team or anyone you know needs an experienced level designer, hit me up. Check out my portfolio here to see what I've done the last 7 years as a level designer in the AAA space at alexgrainer.com. Cheers. The way that Alex writes about it on LinkedIn sounds like most of the team at Wildlight has been laid off, and then he said how disappointed he is because there is unreleased content that they were excited for, meaning that it feels like that unreleased content is never coming. So my impression is that these layoffs are in preparation for shutting it down, especially when you also look at Josh Sobel's post. Today I was laid off from my job at Wildlight along with most of the staff. Once again, echoing that same sentiment that most of the staff has been laid off. You can't run a game like Highguard with most of the staff gone, and this was the lead tech artist. So this is like a pretty big position, it feels like. It was the best team I've ever worked with, and I've never put so much of myself into a project before. I wouldn't trade the past 2.5 years for anything. And then he goes on to talk about his experience, so if anyone has, a need for his expertise, to please reach out about it. To me, this feels like the end of Highguard, more like Byeguard, because it's saying goodbye here. It feels like these posts make it pretty clear that most of the staff has been laid off, and that it's likely winding itself down for that next step. It feels like it's in that stage where it's probably closing its doors. But I could be entirely wrong. It's just, the statement about the unreleased content that's not coming, these layoffs, most of the staff gone, as well as like a position like fucking lead tech artist. I mean, it'd be tough to keep the game going with basically no one left at the company, right? You would think. Anyway, though, this isn't something that I think is worthy of celebration or anything. I wish Highguard was better and performed better so that way they could keep chipping away at something and maybe make something special eventually. Like, take for example No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky came out to nothing but booze. Just an absolute flood of booze, trash, and look what happened over the years. They worked so hard to make an extremely special game, and now No Man's Sky is a fucking masterpiece, right? I'm not saying Highguard was ever going to be able to do that, but I would just like if these games, they actually were willing to stick with it for a while to at least see what they could do with it. I was very pessimistic about the game going into it because it didn't seem like a game that I was going to enjoy all that much. I tried it and it was okay. It's just kind of a meh thing, but who knows? Maybe if they really committed to it, they could have made something great out of it. Now, I don't think we'll ever really know, because it seems like these companies are more than willing to spend unfathomable amounts of money, millions of dollars, to develop a project like this, and then just close it in 2 weeks, just let it die, lay everyone off, say, well, that was a failure of an experiment, is what it is. I would prefer if these games came out and were good. I don't like to see all these people losing their jobs. That sucks. And it's not like the developers were the ones that cooked the idea here. I imagine that came from a higher level position. Most people could tell you, you got a real tough battle ahead of you, a real war to fight if you're trying to carve out a strong community in a genre this full that Highguard was competing in. Like, it's just, I feel like it should have been obvious, but I think so many people in the games industry at the highest level of the food chain just are delusional. Like, it is what it is, man. But yeah, anyway, I wanted to yap about this a little bit. I do think it won't be long now before we see Highguard saying that, they're going to be closing it in the near future. But maybe not. Maybe they are going to run this with a skeleton crew at Wildlight. As I was rendering this video, Wildlight Entertainment put out a statement saying, "Today we made an incredibly difficult decision to part ways with a number of our team members while keeping a core group of developers to continue innovating on and supporting the game. We're proud of the team, talent, and the product we've created together. We're also grateful for players who gave the game a shot and those who continue to be part of the community." So, it seems like, based on this, that maybe they aren't looking to shut it down. They're just looking to maybe cut expenses, save some money on the bottom line because the player base has dwindled so much. That's pretty surprising, I'm not going to lie, because from some of the positions I've seen here, they seem to be pretty high-level positions. So, pretty interesting and honestly pretty surprising, but all power to them if they are going to actually stick with it with their core developers here to keep carving out its own unique identity. I guess we'll see how it goes, but yeah, I mean, assuming that this is correct, seems like it's not goodbye guard. It's more of a see you later guard. Oh, hi, Mark. I don't know. Anyway, that's the Highguard update. That's really about it. So, yeah. Just wanted to give a little eulogy to Highguard. I'm sure many of you have heard the news of its passing. They are shutting it down, so it truly is a certified goodbye guard situation here. The writing was on the wall. The last update we got with Highguard wasn't exactly joyous. It was about the layoffs that they were experiencing, where they let go of the majority of the development team, so it felt like it was just a matter of when as opposed to if they pulled it off life support. It had been hemorrhaging players, and they didn't have the confidence to see it through, to see if they could find a community that would fall in love with it through like updates and tinkering around, which I'll reiterate, I find to just be so vomit-inducing as a norm in this industry, where they'll put millions of dollars into these projects, and if they don't instantly become the next fucking Fortnite or something, they just call it curtains and like, oh, doom and gloom, we're dead. Is what it is. On to the next one. Like, they don't even really, like, try. They farted out, like, a whole roadmap for this game off rip to show that they're, like, really committed to building it with the community, only to just instantly bury it 45 days later. It only lasted, like, a Concord and a half. It's so odd, these executives, man. Like, I don't know what they expect. Anyone could have looked at the trailer for this game at the end of the Game Awards, which absolutely blew its ass wide open. That was a really unfortunate position for it to be in because of the expectations for a game like this. It already put a sour taste in people's mouths. But anyone could look at this game and tell you, yeah, it's not exactly going to stand toe-to-toe with the big dogs. This is something that would need to carve out a niche over time in order to find an audience. Like, it just surprises me that they all have become so deluded that they think it's going to happen immediately for them. It's not. So this game made it like 45 days, and I'm sure learning of its shutdown isn't the most surprising thing you've ever heard, because it's probably the most surprising thing you've ever heard. We'll look at their statement, though. Highguard's final update arriving soon. Thank you for playing with us. Today we're sharing difficult news. We have made the decision to permanently shut down Highguard on March 12th. Since launch, more than 2 million players stepped into Highguard's world. You shared feedback, created content, and many believed in what we were building. For that, we are deeply grateful. Despite the passion and hard work of our team, we have not been able to build a sustainable player base to support the game long term, which runs contradictory to what was stated initially once the players started to drop off after day one about, like, we don't need massive players. Player count isn't everything. We can continue to sustain this for the whole fucking roadmap. Like, now it's a very different song and dance here. Servers will remain online until March 12th. We hope you'll jump in with us one more time to show your support and get those final great matches in while we still can. The team is excited to release one final game update to enjoy in the remaining life of the game. We'll be adding a new warden, a new weapon, account level progression, and skill trees. Full patch notes are coming, and we're targeting tonight or tomorrow morning for patch release. From all of us at Wildlight, thank you for playing, for supporting us, and being part of Highguard's story. They're sailing off into the sunset with one last content drop here for Highguard. And I gotta tell you again, sports fans, I just don't know what kind of stupid juice executives are fucking squirting down their gullet there, the video games industry, to make them think that games like this are going to immediately pop off. Be real. A game in this genre that is so fucking saturated is going to need some time to bake. It's going to need a lot of tender love and care, a lot of alterations, a lot of listening to the community in order to build something that will hopefully get more players in the door. It was never going to be like a smashing global phenomenon or anything like that. That is very rare. I just don't get how they wouldn't have accounted for that and allocated budget of like, here's what we're going to go for this length of time, and if we don't grow to this level over the course of like 6 months or something, then we call it quits. They give it just over a month. Like, it never stood a chance. Even setting aside the blunder of the Game Awards for Highguard, even if that didn't happen, it probably would still be getting shut down right now, or maybe it would have even happened earlier, because at least the Game Awards put a lot of peepers on it, and even though it was like, you know, people just looking the clown on it, it did get a lot of people in the door initially to try it, to the tune of almost like 100,000 concurrent on day one. So maybe if that didn't happen, it wouldn't have even come close to that, and they would have shut the doors after 3 fucking days or something. Like, oh, it's over. Okay, everyone go home. Pack your bags. You're fucking fired. It didn't work. Like, maybe that's how it would have happened if the Game Awards, you know, blunder didn't go down the way it did. Who's really to say? But all I can tell you is that I find it really just gross that these companies only give a game like a month and some change to be like the biggest game in the world, as opposed to like working at it for a long time. Like, let's take for example Rainbow Six Siege. I don't know how many old heads out here remember launch Rainbow Six Siege. That shit was almost non-functional. Siege was in a bad spot for a really, really, really long time. For like a whole month or two after its release, it was the Highguard of shooters. People would go into Siege just to make fun of the motherfucker. So like, that game had, by all definitions, a like rocky launch. Now, of course, it did have more players. I get that. It is like a huge budget title. But even still, by all definitions, it was a game that was floundering. But over the course of so much iterating, so much changing, and spending a lot of time, it was able to carve out a niche and grow into a successful game. Now, Highguard, of course, came out, and when people tried it, they weren't blown away. It was mid. That is just how it is. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't the shittiest thing in the world. It was just mid. It was kind of a been there, done that kind of thing, but with a different coat of paint, like a different spin on it, kind of, where now it's like pseudo base rating, but it still just felt like the same dish we had been served numerous times before. But that's not to say it would always exist in that state. Maybe over time they could have fleshed something out and made something unique out of it that would have attracted a community to it. You never know. And now we will never know, because the game's already getting shut down in just over a month. Like, it's just so fucking weird to see how content these companies are in the industry to just dump millions out the wazoo on these games, and then they only let them live for like just over a month, or sometimes even less. What a huge fucking waste of time and money in that case, if you're not even going to try to see where things go down the line. I get it's still expensive to keep running the games, which is why I think these companies need to be a lot more realistic with their expectations on things, like a fucking pseudo-hero shooter experience. Like, come on, wake up. This is ridiculous. Now again, it's not exactly surprising, because there's, at the moment, 350 players playing Highguard. That's not a substantial player base to justify, like, still spending oodles of clams developing it. I get that, which is why this is not shocking in the slightest. I just feel like it's something they should have been preparing for, and maybe, heaven forbid, not investing millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars into these games, expecting them to instantly blow up and instantly make all your money back within the first fucking 48 hours of it being live. But who knows, maybe I'm just on the crack pipe with that take. It just feels stupid. It feels like this was the most predictable thing that you could have seen unfold from any level. Like, anyone who has any level of experience in gaming could have told you Highguard was going to struggle finding like a solid player base, like a sizable player base. It would take a long time and a lot of work and a lot of effort to carve out a niche. And they weren't willing to commit to it, so now they've shut it down. Anyway, just wanted to let you all know that Highguard's going offline pretty soon. The guards are going to be sailing off high into Valhalla, it seems. That's really about it. So, yeah.
You know, sometimes our last reveal at the Game Awards is a teaser for something years and years away. But not tonight. Our final world premiere comes from 61 members of the team Nintendo. The power of independent, self-published studios to push this medium forward is a growing and, I think, positive theme in our industry. And so tonight, you're not only going to get the announcement of the game, but also your first look at the gameplay. I've played it, and after you see this trailer, I think you're going to want to as well.
Good. You made it.
That you, Peach? I see Toadsworth roped you into this, too.
The Monarch's job is never done, but we can talk more later. Bowser's castle should be just up ahead.
I thought I smelled something burning.
Focus, M. Bowser's got the power stars, and you know what that means.
Yeah, trouble.